Good day, it's Constantine. Welcome to part 4 of the SE-02 tutorial, which is the final part. And in this one, we are going to have a look at the system settings of the SE-02, and we'll also connect it to a DAW. Now let's start with the setup parameter settings for the patch mode. So in patch mode, you press comp and play together, and your settings light up. So step 1 is pitch bend range. By default, it is at 2 semitones, and you can see how many the value on the screen. And you can go all the way up to 24 semitones, which is 2 octaves. Let's try it. Let's go 13. And 2 octaves. Let's go back to 2. Now step 2 is depth by which modulation wheel controls CC. Essentially, you can use the mod wheel to control the filter cutoff. And you set the amount here, and you go from 0 to 127. So let's go all the way up. And I'm going to turn the filters alright, so I'm going to control the filter cutoff with the mod wheel. Let's go back to 0. Now, step 3 is depth by which aftertouch controls the LFO that affects the oscillators. Now, this will only work if your keyboard has aftertouch. So let's go on 120, something high. And let's try it. Let's bring the filter up a bit. And then with the aftertouch. Let me bring the rate up a bit. And let's go back to 0. Step 4 is depth by which aftertouch controls the cutoff frequency. Now, as before, this will only work if your keyboard has aftertouch function. So I can use, let me take it up a bit. So I can use my aftertouch to control the filter cutoff. And back to 0. Now step 5 is depth of the contour knob effect. So essentially, you can use the contour knob to have velocity control the depth of your filter. So if I turn the contour volume up, the contour is already up, and I bring the filters down, that's fine. So you can hear that the sound will change depending on the velocity, so how hard or soft I play the note. Go back to 0. Now, step 6, it's patch volume. Controlling the volume of the patch. I'll keep playing the note and listen to the volume while I turn it down. step 7 and 8 we have already looked at. Step 7 is LFO pulse width modulation rate, and step 8 is LFO pulse width with modulation depth. And as before, step 9, as with the sequencer and song mode, is clear paths. Now step 15 and 16 I can't properly demonstrate because I don't have the hardware to do so, but step 15 is CV fine tune. It finally adjusts the pitch relative to the voltage that is input to the CV input jack. And step 16 is CV key follow. It adjusts the width of pitch change relative to the voltage that is input to the CV input jack. So that's it for the patch settings. Let's have a look at the system settings. Now to enter system settings, you turn off the synthesizer, you hold down exit and then turn the synth on again. Okay, so step 1, it specifies the MIDI transmit receive channel. You can select one of the 16 channels. You can have it off or at Omni, and it will receive regardless of the channel. And you need to set your MIDI channel when you connect your synth to another synth via MIDI or to your computer. Now, step 2, it enables chain. It's off and on. Now, the SE-02 is a monophonic synthesizer. But if you want to connect more than one SE-02s together, then you can increase the polyphony. And you can do that via this option here. Now, step 3 is power off after some time of inactivity. You have the option of off, it never turns off, 30 minutes or 240 minutes, which is 4 hours. Let's go 30 minutes. Step 4 sets the time of when LED demo will start. Now in mixing consoles, that is known as Vegas mode. Now let's have a look at that one quickly. You have to exit the system settings to see that one. And that is Vegas mode. Now you might be thinking, well, that's important, but it's actually cool. So you have a YouTube channel, you make a video and you have your synths in the background. When this mode is on and the lights go crazy in the background, it looks much better. In any case, let's go back. I'm gonna turn it off again, hold exit and turn it on. Now, step 5 is your Midi CC send option. You can use your SE-02 as a MIDI controller. We'll have a look at that in a bit when you use it connected to Ableton. And in this mode you have off, USB, MIDI, or both USB and MIDI. Now step 6 is program changes sent. This specifies the program changes output. Off, we have no output. USB, it outputs only to USB, and MIDI, it outputs only to MIDI. And you have both output to USB and MIDI. Step 7 is sync options. Here we set the clock to which the song in our song mode will synchronize. So if we have the SE-02 connected with other devices and we have created a little setup, say the SE-02 and drum machine, etc., we can choose the sync clock to synchronize everything. PS is tempo of the pattern song. Then we have internal clock, MIDI, USB, and trigger signals input to the triggering jack. Let's go back. Step 8, we've already looked at, is the MIDI key trigger. And step 9 is MIDI through. Now MIDI through passes an exact copy of the data at the MIDI in of the device. You might be wondering, well, what's the difference with the MIDI out then? That can also be a copy of the input. Now usually has some other information as well, but MIDI through doesn't. It is an exact copy of the data at the MIDI in. And at step 16, you can see the current version of your synthesizer. Now let's connect to Ableton and have a look how we can use that with a DAW. For this example, I'm going to use Ableton as this is my preferred DAW for anything electronic music related, but the principles apply to all DAWs. Now, before we begin, I want to show you how everything is set up and tell you that this is my workflow, the thing that works for me. Experiment with it, maybe you'll find a workflow that fits your style better. So, I am using the Scarlett 2i2 as my audio interface. I have the SE-02 connected to the computer via the USB cable, and I also have a line going up from the output of the SE-02 to the audio interface, and you'll see why once we are in Ableton. And then I also have a MIDI keyboard connected to the computer. Now, before we get into it, you need to do a few things in order to make this work. First and foremost, you need to download the drivers. Okay, in order to download the drivers, open up your search engine and write Roland SE-02 drivers. Click on the first link of the Roland website. Yeah. Okay, so now what comes up are the versions. If you don't see the drivers here, just click on the updates and drivers, then click on NS, and then scroll all the way down to S and click on SE-02. Where you at? There. And here you have both the updates and the drivers, so download the correct driver for your operating system. And that's it. And now we are back in Ableton. Now once you install the drivers and set the MIDI preferences in the system settings of the SE-02, open Ableton and then go to your preferences. First of all, go to your audio tab, and then for both input and output, you are going to use your audio interface. And I'm telling you that because you'll see that SE-02 is here as well. Do not choose that. For both input and output, use your audio interface. I have to use multi-output because I'm doing the screen capture. And then you go to link and MIDI if everything went well with the drivers. Input and output will also have your SE-02 in the MIDI ports. Make sure track and remote are on. And that's it. Now, as I said earlier, I'm going to show you the way I work, and this is simply a suggestion. You might find that some things do not agree with your personal style, but this fits my workflow. In any case, let's start. Now, let's assume that we are going to make a track. You need a system that will allow you to come back and keep working on the track for as long as you want and for as many times as you want without having to worry about losing sounds you have created, etc. And this is where MIDI and saving presets in the user bank make our life extremely easy. Now I have a bit ready. Let's have a listen. Okay, let's just do 4. Now, let's say that I want to put some sort of bass on top of that. What I do is I create a new MIDI track, and then for, let's see, all ins, I leave it as is. For the MIDI channel, you choose the one you have selected in the SE-02. I have it on Omni, so it doesn't matter. For the monitoring, if you hear a double note when you play, make sure you put it on off. If not, auto is fine. And then for the output, you select SE-02. That's it. Now everything I play will come back to Ableton from the SE-02. Now let's use a bank that has aftertouch. I know that A96. Yes, have a listen. And the reason is because Aftertouch sends MIDI information, and that will also be sent to Ableton, and we can manipulate it further by using the envelopes. Now let's have a go at it. I'm going to try and make a mistake on purpose so I can show you how we can fix everything. So arm record. Let's try it. Okay, let's see what we have. I'm going to loop it. Okay, so when you go to envelopes and click this little arrow here, all the information you have sent will be here available for you now. So in the control chooser, if you click on it, the controls you have sent MIDI will have a little dot next to it. So in this case, Aftertouch channel pressure. If we choose it, we see that the MIDI information for Aftertouch has also been sent. Now I can do anything that I want here. I can just grab this little piece here and delete it. Where's the other one? That one as well. Or I can just use my pencil. Let me go in, further in. And do anything that I want. Let's have a listen. Now, as you can see, this opens up an infinite amount of possibilities. I can transmit any Midi CC that I want. You can literally touch any knob and start making changes live. Now let's record something new to see how we can transmit Midi CC. But, and this is important, once I'm happy with what I have, before I move on to a new track, I do two things. And I'll say it again, this is very important as this is a hardware synth. And once you want to work on another channel, you will have to change the settings of the synth and the sound you have created. So, if I have made changes on the preset, I save it in the user bank. So no matter what happens, the sound I have created will always be available. Then in Ableton, so since this is just a preset, I'm not going to save it. I go to Edit Info Text and then I write Bank A preset 96. So that's done. This channel will always have the sound available in case I want to make further changes. But since this is a MIDI channel and I will start work on a new channel, it won't play back what we have once I choose another channel. It will start playing back the new sound we have created. So I need to print that channel. So what I do is I create a new audio track. I leave everything as is except for the input. My synth is on input 2, so I choose that. And then I simply print that channel. And that's it. Now that sound will always play back. I deactivate that, I deactivate the MIDI channel, and then I make them the same color. I give them the same name. So after bass, and then after bass, BD for bounce down. So now I know that these are the same sound. I can work on it anytime that I want. Let's have a listen. Nice, now I'm ready to move on to another track. It is the exact same procedure, so I create a new MIDI track. I changed my output to the SE-02, I ARM recorded. Okay, let's record something and then transmit some CC. Let's go with Bank B 40. Nice, okay. Now in order for this to work, okay, let's record something first. Actually, I'm going to duplicate those. Okay, let's start from here. Let's record something. Actually, I'm going to play it an octave higher. Let's try that again. That'll do. Ah, come on. Okay, that's fine. Now, what I can do is to transmit Midi CC while it's playing back. So I'm going to loop this one. And then in order for this to work, you have to keep your track armed and then simply press record. I'm going to use the filter to demonstrate what we transmit. So right now, if I go to my envelopes and I go to the control chooser, number 74 will have a little dot next to it, and that's my filter cutoff. And that's what I've done with my knob. That's it. And as before, as with the aftertouch, I can use my pencil and make all the changes that I want. And I can also add a few things, other things, and it doesn't have to be one control at a time. I can have it playing back for as long as I want and keep messing with the controls. Okay, so let's say let's clear that envelope. Let's duplicate that. And let's try a few more controls. Let's say I'm going to use some feedback, some noise, some delay. Let's see. I had it on loop. But you get the idea. So if I go down here now, $71, which I don't know what it is, will also be on. $51, $41. So one of these is feedback, noise, and aftertouch. That's probably. That's my noise. And the feedback. So that's it. That you can transmit anything you want, and this opens up an infinite amount of sound design possibilities you can mess around with. Now, the very last thing which we haven't covered is this little sync switch right here. And this allows us to synchronize the synth to a MIDI clock. Now, all the way down, we have no sync. On L, the LFO is synchronized to MIDI clock. On D, the delay is synchronized to MIDI clock. On L and D, both the LFO and delay are synchronized to MIDI clock. Now let's look at an example. Let me delete these, then just play the beat. Okay. Let's use some delay. As you can see, the delay now will not be in time. But if I put it on D, now my delay will be synchronized to MIDI clock, so it would follow my tempo. So exact same thing for the LFO. And that is my procedure for working with MIDI and in a DAW with the SE-02. And that would be the end of the SE-02 tutorial. I hope you had fun learning and exploring this synth, and thank you for watching.